So in this video, I will first create a Fedora 40 virtual machine based on ARM architecture, as I am running VMware Fusion on my Apple Silicon MacBook. And to create a DNS server on Fedora 40 virtual machine, I will use the DNS mask package. And after setting up the DNS server, I will modify the DHCP related configuration of VMware Fusion. So anytime a new virtual machine is created with the help of VMware Fusion, it will be sending the DNS query to my custom DNS virtual machine. And so with this we can control everything related to the DNS queries and all. So in case if any custom DNS records are required, so we can create those on our custom DNS server, and any virtual machine which is created on top of VMware Fusion, it will be able to send the query to our DNS server, and like DNS resolution will happen for any custom records that we want. So let's start with the video. So first of all, we will download the Fedora 40 ARM architecture based ISO. So here's the link, and I will provide everything in the video description. So it's around 2.4 GB in size. So once the ISO is downloaded, we can create a virtual machine using it. So I will quickly open up my VMware Fusion, and here I will click on create a custom virtual machine, where I will select Fedora 64-bit ARM, and I will just modify the virtual machine name that I want to create. So I will keep it Fedora 40 ARM. After saving the changes, we will make a few changes, like I will increase the memory to 4 GB, and I will keep the storage default, which is 20 GB, and I will specify the Fedora 40 ISO that we just downloaded, so we can boot the virtual machine and install the operating system. And I will just verify in the network adapter that I have selected share with my Mac option. After making these changes, let's boot up the virtual machine. So it definitely takes time to boot up, so I have fast forwarded the video, and I will select the first grub entry, which is install Fedora 40. So once this machine boots up, you will see this prompt where you have to click on install Fedora. So once this screen comes up, this also takes a few minutes maybe. So yeah, you can select the language and everything, and I will keep the installation destination with automatic partitioning. And after that, the installation starts, and it also definitely takes some time. Once the installation completes, you can click on finish installation, and I will just power off my virtual machine for now, because I will be removing that ISO from the CD DVD option. So after powering off your virtual machine, uh, you can go to the settings of virtual machine and remove that ISO. After doing so, let's start the virtual machine again. So it will boot from your hard drive. After booting the virtual machine, you will get this screen where you can click on start setup and disable these services if not required, and I will enable the third-party repositories. After clicking the next, it will ask for the full name and the username. So I have set it to Ayush, and I will set a password. So after setting up the password, we can just open up the terminal, and first we will be starting the SSHD service and enabling it on boot, because we will SSH to this machine and perform the changes. So I will run this command systemctl start SSD, and I will enable it as well. So in case if machine restarts, that service will start automatically at the boot. Okay, now let's check the IP address of primary interface. It's ending with 117.129. So I will SSH to that machine from my base machine. It will ask for the password, so I will put the password that we just configured. I will become the root user with sudo -i command. After this, first of all, we need to stop and disable the systemd-resolve this service, because this service is by default running in Fedora, which manages the etc file, and this service listens on 53, so we don't need it, and we don't need this service to manage the result.conf file. So after stopping and disabling it, let's check the etc file. As we can see, it's a soft link to another file. I will unlink that file, and now if we check the file again, etc file, it's not there. Alright, now we will create that file manually, and in the name server we will specify the IP address 8.8.8.8, which is the Google DNS, and we need this as of now because we will be installing the DNS mask package, and for that the URL must be like the URL must result to a valid IP address for the repositories and all. So I will type the command yum install -y DNS mask. So the package is already installed, which is good. I will start the service and will enable it. Now we can check the service status as well, whether it's running or not. If failing, then what error. So luckily this service is running out of the box. Now we will move the original dns.conf file. Basically we are just taking a backup of that file, and now we can create a new file from the scratch where we just need a very few configurations. So first of all, we need to note down the primary interface name and the IP address. So now we will create the file from scratch, and in the file we will specify these configurations. So majorly the interface name that we have seen earlier, the IP address localhost, and the primary IP. And in the domain I have specified example.com because that's the custom domain I want to perform DNS query for. And in the server I have specified Google DNS because in case if any queries fail, it will go to Google DNS. And in the address line I have specified the IP address to which my example.com will resolve. After making the changes, let's perform the DNS mask -test command to verify if that file is correct or not, and we can see syntax is okay. And now let's modify the result.conf file again to include the localhost IP of this virtual machine. After making this change, we have to make this result.conf file immutable. So anytime, let's say, virtual machine boots up or any other service tries to modify this file, no changes will be performed. So after that, we will just restart the DNS mask service, and let's check the status. So this service is active and running. Alright, now we will enable the DNS service in the firewall. Like basically we want to allow the packets on port 53 to this virtual machine, like from any other virtual machine. So after adding that service, we will just reload the firewall for the changes to come into effect. Okay, so now let's check the IP address. It is the same 117.129. The result.conf file is having the required changes, and the dnsmask.conf service, it's also having these changes. Now let's perform ns lookup on a random URL, maybe api.iush, which is ending with .example.com, that custom domain we configured DNS mask for, and we will send a DNS query to this virtual machine's primary IP to verify if our DNS server is running or not. So as you can see, it's able to resolve our query to .130 IP that we specified in dnsmask.conf. And let's try to perform that same ns lookup query from our base machine, and from here as well it's working. And let's try it for any other domain as well, which is ending with example.com. It works. So basically any entry in DNS mask, it works as a wildcard domain. Now let's say we want to resolve a particular URL, let's say test.iush.example.com, to some other IP address. So what we will do, we will modify etc host file, and we will specify the IP address, let's say .131, and we want the domain test.iush.example.com to resolve to this IP address. And similarly we can take another domain which should be resolving to 133. So after specifying the required configuration in the etc host file, we can restart the DNS mask service again. After restarting it, we can again run the ns lookup command where we will do ns lookup for test.ayush.example.com on the Fedora 40 virtual machine IP address. So you see it's giving the IP address 131 that we wanted. Okay, so now our DNS server is up. Now we have to modify the VMware Fusion Pro DHCP related configuration. So anytime the new virtual machine is created, it should be sending the query to this DNS server IP. So for that we have to go to the VMware Fusion directory, which is /library preferences VMware Fusion. And once you go to this directory, you will see two directories, vmnet1, vmnet8. So we will go for vmnet8 because if you see the default DHCP configuration for this, you will see the range is starting from 117.128 to 254. So basically our virtual machine is using this DHCP configuration. So I will modify this file with the sudo, and in this file we will be modifying two lines majorly. So the first one is option domain name hyphen servers. So if you see in this line, the IP address is ending with .2 and we will modify it to .129, which is the Fedora virtual machine IP address. And we will modify one more line, which is option net BIOS name servers. So after modifying this file with the desired changes, we need to restart the networking services related to VMware Fusion. So for that the command will be sudo applications vmware fusion.app, and inside that directory vmnet-cli will be present. Basically uh, what we can say, a binary. So first of all we will stop the service and then start it again for the changes to take effect. After making these changes, we can verify whether this works or not. What we will do, we will create another Fedora virtual machine with the same ISO, and we will keep the changes default. So as usual we are just changing the machine name, and here I will keep the memory as it is in the cd-dvd configuration. I will specify the ISO file, and in the network adapter the same configuration. I will boot up this virtual machine, and in the terminal we can verify if we are able to perform ns lookup for the custom domain that we configured or not. So we can run the same ns lookup command we were running earlier, ns lookup api.ayush.example.com, and here we are not specifying the Fedora virtual machine IP address, but still if you see the DNS queries are answered for the custom domains. And similarly we can test for another URL. So that worked. So yeah.